Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 153.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, and welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I am your host, Jay Massey, and you know what? It has been fun continuing to find those entrepreneurs who are out there who are able to help you and I build our cash flow in various different ways. I mean, we've introduced you to authors and visionaries and thinkers and all kinds of people who are out there making their ideas, increasing the value of other people's life with them. And that's what we do. We solve problems. Here's the thing, though. You've probably noticed that it takes a special type of person, and you're wondering, am I that special type of person? Do I have what it takes? Do I have what it takes, most importantly, upstairs to make it through the mental challenges to make it happen? And maybe, if you're like me, you have this fascination with shows like Shark Tank, and you see yourself one day being the entrepreneur or the shark up there and being able to create massive ideas that literally change the world. I think today's guest is going to be able to help you to understand a little bit about that. We have with us Pejman Ghadimi. He's the founder and author of Third Circle Theory. You may not know about that at this moment, but it's been happening for quite some time. And more importantly, it's a powerful theory which explains how some of today's top visionaries are absolutely made. He's been doing this for a decade and has held multiple leadership roles as well as the vice president level at Fortune 500 companies and established several successful offline businesses, including secret consulting and VIP motoring. Now, get this important part right here. Since the young age of 25, Pejman has been financially independent and has dedicated the majority of his time to bringing the SuperEntourage brand to life. It's a unique organization which focuses on helping to motivate people and improve the lives of young entrepreneurs worldwide. And the interesting thing that I hope you heard was since the young age of 25. I think this gentleman knows a little bit about cash flow, so let's welcome Pejman. Pejman, you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Jay.
Excellent. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on your show.
I'm glad that you could make the time. And you know, for those listening, we were introduced to him because one of you out there was reading his book and said, hey, we should talk to you. And I agree. I agree with them 100%. So if some of you out there think there's another person we need to talk to, feel free to let us know. Now, if it's okay, for the duration, we're just going to call you PJ, right?
That sounds good, but I wouldn't want you to try to pronounce my name fast.
Yeah, that could probably be a problem. So here's the question. Everybody listening already knows what I'm about to ask you, but what it comes down to is I look at today's entrepreneurs, of which you are clearly one. A lot like yesterday's superheroes. So, you know, you got your Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, and all these people. They go around, they dress up funny, and they save people from their own mess, which is great. However, before they put on the masks and tights and capes and flu and all that stuff, they were ordinary people to some degree before they became super. They all have an origin story. So what we'd like to know is before you were, VP at Fortune 500, before you were helping hundreds of thousands of people all across the globe, who is PJ?
So real simple, actually, believe it or not, I wasn't really an entrepreneur until about 6-7 years ago. And we can talk about that a little bit later, as I have a very unique definition of the word entrepreneur, which I think is very much aligned with Cashflow Diaries. So let me tell you a little bit about my past. I was born in Iran. In the middle of a revolution, ended up escaping over to France with my mom. And then throughout our time in France, she was an entrepreneur and founded a series of stores similar to Kinko's. I'm sure you've heard of FedEx, Kinko's Copy.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we lived a decent life where we finally got an opportunity to come to the States, at which point we took that opportunity. I was very little. I was like 13 years old. Finally made it to the States, no green card, no social security. And I finally saw that my mom wasn't able to kind of keep up that whole energy level, because she had been doing it so many times through so many countries. And so it was kind of up to me to get started. And so very, very early on, even though I was very young, I had kind of my back against the wall and I had to do something to kind of help support us as well as kind of help her instead of just letting her kind of carry that burden. So very, very early on, I was about 14 years old. I didn't have any type of papers. I ended up nobody would give me a job, right? It's like, who gives a kid a job?
Right.
But, I tried to apply at McDonald's and I get completely shut down, which at the time that was a dream job, believe it or not. So I end up going to school and I finally get a hold of like the counselor and ask her for a work permit. My luck was they had some kind of job fair that day where in the cafeteria, these younger guys were giving away jobs for like telemarketing. Now, keep in mind, I have no idea what a telemarketer is, right? I'm just coming into this country,
Oh boy.
I'm not speaking great English. I speak English, but not that great. I'm having a hard time, like kind of explaining myself. And these guys are like, yeah, it's just customer service. You'll sit there. You're not going to do much. And you're going to do great. So I was like, yeah, you know what? Nobody else is going to give me a job. These guys are paying me twice the minimum wage. I'll go for it, right? So, and that's exactly what kind of started my whole journey, like to success. It started with just a very basic telemarketing job. And believe it or not, this was the best job I ever held in my life. Partly because very early on, it taught me how to deal with rejection and how to deal with just this constant obstacle of creating connections with people that you don't even see or you've never even talked to before. So all of those things kind of, came to play very early on. And I started working as a telemarketer. I quickly understood what things were and what was happening. And long story short, I started doing really well at it because I didn't have a choice. Unlike other people in the office who had the choice to go work elsewhere, for me, this was it. So I was selling siding and roofing, and I went from making like $12 an hour all the way up to $2,500 a week in commissions. And this was within a year. And this, there's many things that I did during that time to get to that place. But the main thing here was that I didn't have a choice and everybody else had that choice, So for me, it was like, go to school, go to work, go to school, go to work. And I eventually started accumulating savings, very young, not only just supporting my mom, but actually having additional money I could put aside. So that kind of continued until I was about 18. And by the age of 18, I was the director of that same company. Now, by then, I had papers, like I was doing really well in telemarketing. I was running a canvassing crew. I had 3 offices for remodeling, for windows and siding running under me. And I'm still this 18-year-old kid that really doesn't, know too many things other than video games and kind of like, I love nice cars, so that was kind of something I spent some money on. And so at 18, something really hit me. I said, you know what? I'm making like really good money. I was making almost $80K a year. And I have no expenses other than the house to pay for, and like, it's just me and my mom. I'm an only child. So I say, you know what, let me start, obviously buying myself a house. So my uncle helps me get my first home, which kind of introduced me to real estate. He was big in real estate. He kind of taught me the insights of, how to buy low and then obviously just hold and how to buy in emerging markets and so on and so forth. And so I said, you know what, I need a lot more knowledge on this. And I start going and I said, where can I get this knowledge? Where should I work? So I wanted to learn about money. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like a lot of people when they're young, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be an astronaut or some crazy stuff. I was more like grounded, and I didn't want to become a race car driver, even though I love cars. But I knew I loved one thing. I loved money. And really young, I didn't have a lot of it. So, needing to make a lot of it and wanting to make a lot of it, I said, what better place to work than a bank? So, having all this director experience, I became a very, very young branch manager at 18. And I became a bank manager at 18 because I was able to get into a bank that had a position inside a supermarket, which was pretty sales driven primarily. So through that sales, kind of like my sales experience and my management experience, I was able to land this role. Again, I get into a company where I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't understand anything about the banking system or anything else. And I quickly self-educate myself and do really well again. And that path again continued till I was about 25 years old. I was the director. At that point, I continued kind of moving up. I became a regional manager, a market manager. Then I became a retail market manager for this company. And until about the age of 25, where I completely get fired. I get fired from a really nice six-figure job with a really nice bonus. And I get fired because I'm very cocky. And I wear gold Rolexes to work, and I'm driving Lamborghinis to work, and it's pissing off a lot of people. So that kind of gave end to my corporate career and gave birth to, I was like, there's no other 25-year-old that's going to get like a executive VP job at another bank that he didn't grow up with, that he didn't prove himself to, especially at the brinks of a recession and all of this other stuff's going on, So I had money.
Well, PJ, you got. I mean, come on, you're driving a Lamborghini in the front of the grocery store. It looks a little weird. I mean,
But I was worse, man. I was so cocky. I used to park the Lamborghini like double parked in like handicapped spots. I would make sure that everybody in the building saw me coming out of it. Like I was one of those kids, that was like way things were getting to his head. Like I had made too much money too quickly. I had no idea what to do with it, and I was getting on everybody's nerves. And I didn't realize that till years after. When I really look back and I say, "What a jackass!" Forgive me for saying that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's someone going, "Wow, he actually admits it now. This is cool." All right.
I knew I was that guy, and that and I had money. That was the thing. Like one of the things that happens when you're very young and you deal with money early, you tend to realize that. Hey, you know what? You don't know how to act, right? You don't know who you are. So you're getting all this money and you're learning to become who you're going to be. So long story short, that was kind of what led to me. And most people think this is the beginning of my entrepreneurial kind of journey, but it's not. This was the beginning of my self-employment journey, which is very different from entrepreneurship, which I learned later on. So do you want me to go into that?
Yes. Well, I like that the distinction. We're going to make that distinction for sure, because I think you and I are going to be 100% aligned on those things. But I love what we've heard thus far, because, I too feel you said it more than once. You did well because you didn't have a choice. There was no option. And I've often said to people, comfort kills dreams. You actually believe that, hey, there's an option. My 401k is going to make it. What I'm doing is going to work. This job is going to take me to the promised land. And we operate from that, hey, I've got a choice. So if I have a choice, then I don't need to give 100% here. I don't need to put it all right here on the line today. But you didn't. And I think that is that way of thinking has continually helped you all the way through. And I did want to say this. There's nothing wrong with video games, by the way. I'm totally with you on the video game thing. I'm just like, hey.
Not anymore, man. This was when I was 15. I don't know about now. You're still playing video games.
Right. Well, on occasion, I do give myself, I take off there's a small window of time. I give myself about 2 consecutive weeks of time every year just to play video games, because I still like doing it. But I hear you. But I want to hear this transition, because now you're transitioning, you're 25, you're transitioning from this employee world and you're going over to the self-employment world.
Yeah, and a big reality check there, right? Like it doesn't happen overnight, even with all the experience and with all the back end financial support I had for myself. It wasn't going to happen. And I spent 1 year starting this company called Secret Consulting, which just was a disaster. Nothing was happening, nothing was moving, nothing was changing. And I quickly realized that I was like, man, did I make the right choice? Should I go back to work? What should I do? But it took really a year, not to really see that it wasn't working, but to realize that I was the reason why it wasn't working. Mm. I was in my corporate mindset, like wanting this to kind of like work for me. And unfortunately, I got a reality check that, hey, I worked for a bank that had like 20 years, 50 years of like branding behind them, and then I'm starting this company with nobody knows me. Nobody knows who I am, what I do. So I got to go back to like, advertising 101, like back in my telemarketing days, and like sell everything every day. And, so I started doing that after a year or so, and things started changing for the better. Like we were, Secret Consulting was a business whose focus at the time was really selling banks with certain sales and service models, like almost like training, for
Yes.
employees. And I was really good during my time in banking doing that. And so it took about a year for me to network with the right people and kind of get started actually grinding income and starting to actually build a business from it. And then since the age of 14, I had this other company called VIP Motoring. At the time, it was just a car wash, like side income. I was tuning cars. I always loved cars. And it was just side income, like 20, 30K a year of just putting wheels on cars, doing detailing, and just basic upkeep maintenance for people. That kind of like when I kind of lost my job, I kind of realized that maybe since it was making money all of this time constantly, I should maybe invest some money and kind of grow that business as well. So we spent some time and turned that into a huge concierge service, which about 2 years after I got canned from corporate America, that business went from like 30K a year all the way up to, you ready for this?
Yeah.
7.5 million in revenue. And then the following year, 28 million in revenue. So, and I can share, and I can share how we did that. But that was kind of like the pinnacle of what allowed me to kind of realize that I was self-employed, and I really did well with both, in the auto industry as well as in the consulting business. And we expanded that consulting business to go from being just sales and corporate training to actually doing website, digital marketing, and digital branding. And so all of these things put together, I started doing really well monetarily again, got back in my comfort zone until I one day realized after a few years of making some good money and getting back to my comfort that, hey, you know what? I have no legacy whatsoever. No matter how much money I make, no matter what I do, it's just this never ending cycle, and it's just this cycle of just keep making more money for no reason. And I realized that I really wasn't an entrepreneur. And I kept hearing that word, calling myself an entrepreneur. And I realized, you know what? I'm a business owner. And I always said the difference between business owner and entrepreneurs is business is for profit and entrepreneurship is value creation. And I realized that as much as I was creating value for my customers, I was only doing it for the sake of a profit. And so therefore, I realized that I was a business owner. And that kind of started my weird thinking about what an entrepreneur is and how did I want to become one and transition from being a business owner to an entrepreneur.
Got it. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure that everybody hears is there was a point in time in which you were questioning. You said, did I make the right choice? I'm assuming you've worked with more than one entrepreneur these days. And I think at some point we all come to the, should I go back to Egypt where I had a job and just hang on, or do I push through? And yet for whatever reason, some people make the decision to go back and others make the decision to move forward. And I think I'm curious to know what pushed you to still make the decision to move forward.
You mean to move forward and kind of continue onwards? Was that?
Yeah, because if you've ever thought, when you have that thought, should I go get a job? You're thinking like, well, you have to make a conscious decision to say, no, I shouldn't, and move forward.
Let me tell you, the decision I made early on when I kind of decided to go to work and support my mom's the same decision that came back in my mind at that point. And it's, I've always believed that people who are poor choose to be poor. And what I mean by that is like we choose to be survivors or builders. There are only two types of ways we look at money. Either we build wealth or we use money to survive. And so regardless that we survive well or that we survive not so well, in poverty, we still survive. But those that build actually realize that true wealth isn't just money that you make to spend. So I think very early on, I realized that I didn't want to be poor and I didn't want to have someone else tell me what I could or couldn't do, could buy or couldn't buy, or where I could vacation or couldn't vacation. And I figured the only way you can get there is through making money. I realized that making money in corporate America, while my position was amazing, and I was making great money, more money than most people could hope for coming out of school with MBAs, and I didn't even have an education. I think these things, like, to me, just were like great. But I realized that no matter what, at the end of the day, that income was always dependent upon someone else saying if I could have it or not.
Right.
And if I didn't move forward and get over that, at some point I would be forced to do so. So if not now, then when, right? Isn't that what they always say? So that's what really came to mind, and I was like, I don't have a choice. Like, what I kind of did too, for a little bit of time, I thought about going back and I started kind of recreating those connections I needed with corporate leaders, like, so I could kind of maybe put my way into a position somewhere just in case,
Yeah.
And then last minute, I completely burned all my bridges. And I did that because I knew that feeling like I had that option would always hold me back from pushing forward in another direction. It's like if you're at the gym, and you always say in my book, if you're at the gym and you have a spotter, you tend to bench a lot less than when you don't have a spotter, right? If you're hanging off a cliff, it's the same thing. You can suddenly pull yourself up if your life is at stake. But if you know that, you have a rope hanging on you, you're going to give up faster. And so, it's the same mentality you need in business. You need to be able to say, hey, this isn't a question of if we're going to make it, how am I going to make it? It's a question of when am I going to make it? And when depends on me. So I think I realized that early. And I say early, a year is really not that much time to realize such a thing. And it worked out well for me because I figured that I wasn't going to sleep until I pushed forward,
Yeah, I do know. I do know completely. Yes, that's exactly why I think we resonate here, because burning the bridge, I was given no bridges. I didn't have a resource to go to. We have to all make it happen. We have to choose to make it happen, because we will take the path of least resistance, especially when we're afraid. When we're afraid, any excuse will do, usually the one that our friends will most likely accept. Now, you're going through this, and then you realize you have this, I'll call it awakening moment, where you go, I have no legacy. Because that question hit me probably like 2-3 years ago, was like, what would I leave behind, and those types of things. And I'm curious to hear about your journey and transition to understanding that the difference between, and by the way, I love the distinction, businesses for profit, entrepreneurs are out there for value creation. Totally get that. But I would love to hear the transformation process, the higher levels of thinking that have happened for you when it comes to this, I'll call it your legacy project.
Are you tired of letting good cash flow generating ideas go to waste? Go to CashFlowDiary.com/ready to apply for a complimentary, yes, that means free, one-on-one breakthrough session. Take action now. Go to CashFlowDiary.com/ready. Again, that's CashFlowDiary.com/ready. Before we get back to today's episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast, your host Jay Massey has some important insights to share with you.
Hey guys, just actually on this one, just let me give you a quick reminder. We're still doing the contest until July 4th. We're trying to get to 100 written reviews on the show. So if you haven't done so and you'd like to be entered to win a copy of the Cashflow game, we're going to get to 100. All you have to do is help us get to 100. Everyone who has already reviewed, thank you very much. And if you'd like to win or be entered to win, we need the written reviews on iTunes so that we know who your name is. And when your name is chosen, you win. That's all. Just go over to iTunes, give us a quick little review. That'd be great. Let's get back to Pejman.
Yeah, so I knew that money mattered. Obviously, we live in society. I talk a lot about this in my book, that, we have to master the art of society before we can really master the art of life. And when I kind of realized that I had money and I had nothing else other than money, I came to the conclusion that I needed a way to really, pass that on. And one of the main things that made me really successful in banking between my 18 to 25 years of age was my ability to grow people. I was able to take like basic talent, like people that were parkometer maids, and make them like business banking VPs working for me within less than 3 years with no education, and like I was able to get the potential out of people, even if kind of society had turned their back on them.
Right.
And so I said, you know what, that should be something I focus a lot of my time on, like helping kids or helping people who have been maybe beaten down by society or who have not had the support system I've had for myself, and are able to grow, the pace I've been able to grow. So I said, you know what, I'll start a blog and I'll start kind of writing this stuff for free, so that kids who kept asking me, what do you do, man, to be so young and driving a Lamborghini and this and that, now no longer need to ask me. They can read some of these excerpts about things you need to do to be successful. And none of it had to do with money. It all had to do with kind of mindset and the way you have to start thinking about situations, awareness, and perspective. And so I started writing, and I started realizing that people liked what I was writing and they started following it. And it started as a very small blog under the same name as my consulting agency called Secret Consulting. And it quickly evolved into me understanding how to actually get in touch with these young people that I wanted to really, motivate and get out there to become more entrepreneurial, even if not entrepreneurs in nature. And so what I did is I realized that mixing lifestyle, which is the stuff that other people use to kind of con people into buying stuff to teach them how to make money, except not actually using it that way, but real lifestyle elements from my own life, and really sharing stories for people to listen, because people always love my stories. So I said, I'll just find a way to reach young people that way. And it worked out really well. And that gave birth to Secret Entourage, which today has hundreds of thousands of followers on social, millions of views a month, on our blog, as well as an entrepreneur academy, and then gave birth to the book Third Circle. So all of these things became my way to kind of create this organization whose focus would be to share the stories of not actually my life, but the lives of others who have done tremendously well and who are willing to share their knowledge back and offer their mentorship for free to young individuals across the United States or anywhere around the globe.
That's awesome. One of the things that I was taught early, and it sounds like you learned as well, is that if you build the people will build the business. Whatever the business is, it doesn't really matter. But the investment into that personal development space is huge, and you can never out-earn your own personal growth. And I commend you for being willing to take it on, because that's work.
And let me add something too, because what we took on is something that a lot of people to this day kind of look at our business and don't understand. They're like, well, you did something that was kind of already out there. You added a lifestyle element. You attracted a younger audience, which is completely inaccurate. What we did as an organization, which a lot of people did not kind of understand how we grew so fast, or what we did was we took amazing content, nothing new. Like, we built our own content, but what I mean is this isn't something we invented from scratch outside of Third Circle theory. These were mindset and perspectives already out there, right? Successful people already have these, and they're already doing it. And what we did was we packaged it in a manner and served it not to an online community by doing SEO and kind of like, getting traction on getting your readers, but rather we found a way to tap into people who were not online, who didn't know these resources existed, and who in the offline market kind of felt lost because they never related to any of these resources or knew how to access them. And so the reason we grew so fast is that we took a very powerful online model and leveraged social to reach people offline. And that's why, not only our organization bloomed so quickly, but it's also why it's gotten the interest of many other millionaires that have chosen to dedicate their time and effort to helping us kind of bring it to life. It's because it wasn't a marketing play, it was a reach play. And we reached a lot of people that didn't know this stuff existed.
Yep, totally understood. Now, we've mentioned it a couple of times, and I want to make sure that everyone understands. You mentioned Third Circle. You mentioned it as Third Circle theory. I want you to, if you can, explain for those who may not have been introduced what that is and kind of why it's necessary for them, especially as an entrepreneur or would-be entrepreneur, to understand what it is and be able to leverage it properly.
Sure. So before I do that, let me explain what Third Circle isn't. It's not a business book. It's not a marketing book. And it's not a theory driven to teach you How to Succeed in Business. It's an awareness and perspective training book. So let me explain a little bit about what I've learned through the past decade and much more, just teaching people and kind of helping people uncover their potential. I found a pattern that exists in all people. And this pattern, I've related it to the cycles that someone goes through, like myself or other people like my friends that have gone through some similar things in their lives and the outcome of what's happened as a result of these experiences. And the theory is quite simple. All of us go through three phases in life. Not all of us reach these three phases, but all of us have three phases we can reach if we choose to. The first one is circumstance, which is the first circle. So, we're all born into a circumstance we can't control, in climates we can't control, in geographic locations we can't control, in either wealthy or poor families that we can't control. These things are part of our circumstance. And no matter who we are, no matter rich or poor or disabled or not, we have to learn to master the art of circumstance, which is the first circle. That means we need to understand that our environment and all of these energies and forces in our environment do not control what happens to us, but rather we can control how we act within them and actually progress past them, not allowing them to hold us back. Some things in circumstance are, for example, our ability to overcome fear. This is something very, very simple, but that we're all born with, right? No matter who we are, we're born or infected with some types of fears in our childhoods, which stay with us. Regardless that we're wealthy and that we are born wealthy and that we are afraid to let down our parents and their standards of education, or that we're born poor and that we're afraid to remain poor, or that we're afraid of failing so that we never get out of that cycle. We all have fears. Learning to overcome them is a very small portion of the first circle that we need to master in order to progress into our lives. The second circle is the circle of society. And what that means is that every one of us, once we've understood the circumstance that holds us back, are able to take full control of our lives and enter into the cycle of society. All of us live within a society, that we like it or not. And in order to be able to be successful, we need to master society. One element of society is obviously money. Money is a man-made measure of success. And within a society, it is usually the measure for which people are determined to be successful or not. The more money you have, the more society deems you to be successful. Now, to me, money is not the determinant of success. However, to society and to the majority of people out there, it is. So therefore, in order to be able to truly succeed at life, we have to master society as well. This is almost like when you hear people that have not done well say, well, money is not everything. And everyone else said, well, you've never made any, so you don't know what that's like. Versus someone who's done really well, who automatically has a voice in any organization or anything they choose to do, everyone else is paying attention to. So, making money is a big part of society, and mastering society is an important aspect of life. Most people will go ahead and remain stuck in circle one. While maybe 20-30% of the population cycles to circle two, which become very successful in the art of society, such as like becoming, presidents of major organization, or becoming CEOs of companies that are, where they work for others, or becoming really important within the system. And then the last step is when you realize that society is only a very small portion of life. You kind of start thinking about legacy, vision, kind of entrepreneurship, and that next place where you leave your mark, And that's the third circle, which is the mastery of life. It is our ability to kind of make an impact or create value for others rather than ourselves. And so these are the three kind of components that everybody goes through, that I've realized in my past. People have to be able to move past each in order to kind of succeed to that next level and really find that feeling of purpose. I'm sure you know what I mean, but when you feel purposeful, you become invincible, and you ultimately feel like there's no limitations to life. And that purpose is what ultimately enables ideas like Apple to come to life, and enables major organization that 20 years ago nobody knew about, and today dominate an industry like that's the only thing we even know, like Coca-Cola or something. Like these things are like come from the idea of finding purpose. And while we'll never be able to validate if our purpose is real or not, until we're gone, unfortunately, the only aspect here that's important is to get to a state of mind where we believe to have found our purpose. So we
Yep.
become purposeful. And then through that purpose, since all limitations are lifted, we can choose how to use that to create true value for others, which ultimately, will create reward for ourselves as well.
Yes. And therefore, now everyone knows why I get up every morning. It's because it's exciting to be a part of something where you're impacting and you're changing lives. And I'm assuming that some of the individuals that you've worked with at this point have come back to you in various different forms and said, thank you, PJ, for this, and thank you for this, and I wouldn't have been able to achieve X, Y, and Z if I hadn't been here, and those types of things. I'm assuming that happens on a semi-regular basis for you these days.
It happens like probably 15, 20 times a day. I mean, we have kids that are 18, like this isn't a joke. I mean, we have kids that are 18 making like 50K a month, like just starting their business. And they come around and they tell me, they're like, oh my God, if it wasn't for SuperEntourage, I wouldn't have done it. And then I tell them, I'm like, thanking me isn't going to really do anything. I say, what you really need to do is help others
Yep.
who are also struggling that you have access to. And this is the way you truly give thanks to an organization, is by upholding what it stands for, right?
Yeah, indeed. And that's now you're talking my language, my friend, because that's exactly what gets us excited over here is, I feel like we've been given a gift in the sense of being able to have figured some things out as it relates to real estate. And we do our best to help other people figure those things out. And when they do, I'm telling them, I'm always like, good, now it's your turn. Because that's what I was taught a simple 4-step process. It was, watch me do with me, do alone, then teach another. And that's the process that I think, we're all going through at various different levels. So, when it comes to, you and what you guys are up to, now that you've done all these things or are doing all these things, what's next?
So one of the things we introduced about a year and a half ago was the SuperEntourage Academy, which has been, an amazing kind of like journey where we've been able to take, similar to what you do, Jay, where you interview like kind of movers and shakers within their own industries. We've been able to take people who are kind of willing to share their stories, who have done tremendously well, and who are in the lifestyle space as well, to kind of come together and create this academy where we teach kind of all of these inside stories and as well as insight strategies to all of these unique industries, like, automotive, online marketing, brick and mortar, whatever it is, right? Like people who have done well kind of share their success, but more than their story, they share their strategies. That's been a huge thing for us, because not only that's been kind of the one aspect that's been able to support our site, but the main beauty of it is that this has been able to support our movement of going to low to moderate income communities and kind of offering these services that we've worked so hard to build for free to large groups of people, and kind of bring them on board, giving them copies of Third Circle Diary for free. And so the Academy is something that I invest a lot of my time and effort in. And then the other part is I've always been in the education space, and I've always been all about creating educational products, like helping others kind of learn the insights and concepts of things that they wouldn't necessarily be exposed to. Having spent so many years around cars and in the auto industry in one form, shape, or another, I've created this new kind of concept that's currently Exotic Car Secrets, which is ultimately educational programs teaching people the reality behind luxury lifestyle and how affordable it really is. I've always driven exotic cars, and people always wonder, like, how do you do it, or how do you put up with the cost, the depreciation, etc. And so I've created a lot of concepts to help people kind of overcome those barriers and the fears of the unknown by making everything kind of known. And so we're going to launch a new platform called carconspiracy.com this year, as well as a few other educational platforms, not just around cars, but around financial education, as well as credit education.
Got it. Got it. Now, you don't know this specifically about me, but I used to have this fascination with Lamborghinis, for sure, until I tried to fit in one. And
You're a taller guy.
yes, and that's when it just all fell apart. I was like, I can't even fit. I was trying to go for a test drive. I'm like, you got one in my
size? You drove the wrong
size?
car, man. You drove the wrong car. If I put you in the right Lamborghini, you'd enjoy it, even if you're taller.
Okay, well, I look forward to meeting you and doing that very thing. Speaking of which, one of the things that I know that we've done in the past is, I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow 101 game. It's one of the things that we enjoy doing in terms of going to inner city youth. We've done it at the high school level. We've done it in various different levels, and where we come into a community and show them how to play, and it tends to make a difference in terms of their mindset and how they think about using money and leverage and capital and business, etc. I'm just curious if you guys even have that as a part of what you guys do, or what type of structure do you use to help those individuals in the Secret Entourage Academy?
Yeah, so what we do now is everybody has an expertise in one thing or another. I've always said that no one is an expert in everything, Yeah. So, right? Like, so if you're great at everything, you typically suck at everything. You just have yourself,
Right.
See a line when everyone else sees a cat.
Yeah.
But so we have every single person teaching something completely different. I have a huge background in finance, credit, and those things, and we leverage that a lot on our YouTube channel, as well as in our academy as well, through specific videos we share on various topics. We do speak a lot in high schools as well, and through the we tend to stay away from colleges, partly because we believe that when you reach an audience at a younger age, you're more likely to kind of spark curiosity. And that curiosity is not met with as much, I guess, skepticism, or and it's more kind of like people saying, you know what, like, I'm gonna look into this, which is enough for us. Like, we want people to kind of look into the idea of self-education and not considering themselves to be, if I don't go to college, I can't be successful. If I don't follow what society has for me, nothing can happen. And too often do we hear, if I don't have money, I can't make money. How can I start a business without money? I mean, most of today's best businesses are founded with $0. So, the idea is just to kind of realize that you are the resource. Being resourceful is much more important than having resources. So, that's what we kind of teach people. And that's kind of the focus of our academy, as well as, all of our teachings in high schools.
Got it. That's absolutely awesome. Now, unfortunately, especially for episodes like this, we do have to come to an end, but I've got two final questions. One that I'm sure a number of people are thinking about is, how can they find more about what you're up to and what you're doing? If they wanted to be a part of it, what's the best step for them to find out more about, third circle theory or the academy, or even, I know there's somebody wanting to know more about what you're doing with the cars.
Yeah, so the best place to kind of start and follow everything is obviously SuperEntourage.com. That's our main hub site that kind of has a gateway into everything. And Secret Entourage is a movement. Everything is free on there. Thousands of articles, thousands of resources, all at your disposal, free to help you on your entrepreneurial journey. For those that want to kind of join the movement on a more serious level, we have secretacademics.com, which is the Secret Entourage Academy. And for people who want to learn the prequel to entrepreneurship, then I really recommend people kind of picking up Third Circle Theory at thirdcirclebook.com. I offer it a huge discount with a video course that comes along with it, as well as a lot of financial education I've written about. All of this packaged in one package for people, both digital and in paperback format. And then for people who want to learn about the car stuff, you can join us at exoticcarsecrets.com, or in the next 60 days, we'll be launching carconspiracy.com, which will take effect and redirect from Exotic Car Secrets.
Awesome. And just curious, do you sleep?
Actually, believe it or not, I don't work in any of my businesses anymore except Secret Entourage. I'm very, very good at leveraging talent.
That's good.
And for a few years now, I've had other people run my VIP motoring company as well as my secret consulting company, and that's worked out very, very well for me in order to be able to attend to SuperEntourage primarily and work-life balance, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a feeling you were going to say something quite like that. Now, to the people who are listening right now, maybe they're wanting to put on their own uniform and start saving lives and becoming that entrepreneur, that superhero. That's what they're thinking about. But they're feeling a little timid, or they're just like, that they're still dealing with, can I do this? Will this work out? Things that you've kind of addressed. Pretend for a second you have one of those individuals who's just starting out in front of you. What would you say to him or her?
I think if you're thinking or wanting to kind of take on entrepreneurship, you have to realize that there's no such thing as a good or bad idea. And it all comes down to your ability to believe in what it is you want to do. So I think before you really consider, is the idea going to make money? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? Really think about what you're willing to invest within the idea as a person yourself. If you believe in it strong enough, then that is the idea worth pursuing. If you're doing it just for the sake because you see an opportunity to make some quick cash, then be honest with yourself and realize that that is not entrepreneurship, but rather business ownership. I think one of the biggest things I can recommend to anyone wanting to get in entrepreneurship is to understand the difference between entrepreneurship and business, and that business is about profit. Entrepreneurship is about value creation, which we said earlier, but also understand that at any given time, a business owner can be entrepreneurial to make his business go further. And an entrepreneur will have to understand business principles to create a business out of his venture to eventually be able to be spread worldwide and to kind of grow it past what, just the value creation for those around him. So I think, being honest with yourself early on and deciphering between the two and what you're really going to be undertaking will allow you to really have laser sharp focus and also be able to measure your success according to what the destination was to begin with.
Awesome. Well, I do want to say this. Thank you, PJ, for taking the time out of your day to invest here with us at the Cashflow Diary audience.
No, thank you, Jay. And I appreciate everything you're doing for all these people. And I wish you the best for the years to come.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It is time for you to move at the speed of instruction. So what does that mean this time? Well, I think it definitely means going to pick up a copy of Third Circle Theory at Third Circle Theory book. Why? Because you heard more than one good concept today that you cannot say you know enough to go use just yet. Go pick up the book, learn how to use it, connect with them. There's free information, but it's not really free. It's going to cost you time, and that's one of your most precious and valuable assets. And we are telling you to go invest it there with him because it's going to build you. Remember, as we build you together, you have a shot at building something massive and amazing, and most importantly, becoming a person of impact. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.